Fall down again. You can see he's elected to start from the middle position, which he did last week.
Well, this race, 30 laps, 125.4 kilometres in length, and the track is 4.168 kilometres around. So, almost set for a start now. As Barry has said, Saron has selected to start from that side of the grid, and that's what you did.
Yeah, that's the best. The best thing to be, in actual fact, is the centre of the grid, the way Saron is, because you don't want to get stuck behind the traffic. It's a very difficult circuit to pass on.
Okay, and racing now, and pretty clean start as they come off the grid, and that heat haze is coming off the track barriers, we can see.
Yeah, it's a good start there from Rainey, and I saw Kevin McGee getting up there. It's a tricky section here because on the first lap, all you need is somebody to go down here, and it's like crashing in the middle of Piccadilly Circus.
Well, everybody through.
It looks to me as if Rainey's out in front. Yeah, that is Rainey.
Well, Rainey's made a great start then, and I had the pleasure of seeing him at Kenny Roberts' ranch this year at Modesto, and he works out on a dirt track, which I found surprising.
Well, it's handy, you know, to get used to the sliding. Wayne Gardner's in second, that's Christian Saron in third, Mackenzie fourth, and McGee fifth. Okay,
so all of the field now coming through, and we're having a little bit of trouble with audio coming in from overseas, but we have the pictures, that's the main thing, and we can actually see a shot now as Wayne Rainey and Gardner tucking in behind him. Christian Saron there in third place. He's challenging Gardner now, and the pack steams through. And, well, Wayne Gardner would be happy where he is at the moment?
Well, he is pretty happy where he is, but I can't imagine that he wants to see Christian getting past him, because Christian does get a little bit overexcited and tend to do silly things and fall down. So all we have to hope is that Wayne can get away from Christian and get a bit of a run on Rainey.
Kevin McGee back in fifth place and really challenging too. He's had a great year so far.
Yeah, he has, and he hurt himself last week and had concussion, and he sure seems to have got over that by now.
Okay, so the circuit really fast there as they come back out of that. Just talk us around the circuit as you know it, Barry.
Yeah, that section there, it's a very difficult right and left-hand corner. It's this one here is third gear, up into fourth gear, 140, 160 kilometres, and then you come down into a long, long left-hander, which seems to go on forever. You're in third, and then up into fourth gear, and it just goes on and on and on, and then into a very, very difficult corkscrew section.
Well, I've been having a look for Lawson. As far as I can see, he's about 10th at the moment after a very bad start. There's a rider down there.
Yeah, that's Alexandra Velazzi, the young Italian guy.
And now we have the audio coming in, which is good. He looks okay. He's walking off, so a little slight limp there. Wayne Rainey, though, out in front. Gardner still second, and Christian Saron challenging for third.
And Mamola's right up there as well. He practiced really well on the Cagiva, and we could see quite a surprise from Mamola because he's been going quicker each Grand Prix, and they seem to have got the bike sorted out now, so he could be the dark horse.
Rainey really starting to open up a little bit of a gap there.
Yeah, I think it looks as if Wayne would just be settling down for a couple of laps to make sure the tyres are really warm and that, and just see how the state of play is. It's interesting that Rainey's on Dunlops, and so is Kevin McGee. So it could Gardner's pulled in quite a lot now on Rainey.
Another bike down.
Yeah, it's a very tricky circuit, Rijeka, and it takes quite a while for the tyres to warm up, and it's very hard on tyres as well. So that's Marco Papa from Italy, yet another private rider.
Okay, but this is the race up front now. We've got Wayne Gardner starting to close in on Wayne Rainey, and really closing up now as Saron still comes at him. So the first three, and we go back to a replay of that Italian rider coming down.
I saw the back end of, you just lost it on the exit of a corner. I saw the back end of Wayne's bike slide a little bit there. That's probably just because the tyre hasn't got up to working temperature, because you have to run a very hard tyre compound around this track because it's very, very abrasive and tears the tyres to pieces.
I'm just amazed how you just get yourself up and walk out of a situation like that.
Well, it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you have to be carried out of the situation.
All right, well, here we go now as the field really power around, and Wayne Gardner's taken the lead. So that's a great start for Wayne Gardner now. He's already forced his way through on Wayne Rainey, who had built up a size sizable gap. He's whittled it down, and Saron's still hanging on for third place. So a good race.
Now what we want to see is Saron get up with Rainey, and the two of them start racing, and then that's going to really give Wayne some breathing distance, because all that will happen is they'll just slow one another down.
This is lap 4. Wayne Gardner from Australia. Can he make it 3 in a row? Really throwing the Honda around now. Had those dreadful troubles early in the season. Broken bones in his foot. He soldiered on. He's got the bike right. He's healthy again and really starting to show the form that took him to the World Championship last year.
Yeah, I don't think that's Gentili on the Fior Marlborough sponsored bike. I don't think Gardner's had any form. Oh, little slide there from the back end of Rainey's bike, in exactly the same place as Gardner's.
As Saron now closing in on Wayne Gardner, really winding up and making all sorts of charges at him, but the Australian hanging on.
Yeah, Saron has really put in the pressure on Wayne now. He's broken the lap record. He's knocked 1.2 seconds off it, and in the last lap he's called up over a second. So I know that Wayne doesn't like racing with Christian too much. They're the best of mates, but let's just hope that Christian uses his head.
Well, he goes very fast, but he tends to drop the bike a little too.
He does. He just seems to ride with his heart more than his head. He's a very likeable character, but he just seems to get over brave.
We'll have a look at this now as the Australian really powering the Honda through the corners, and Saron really hanging on with everything he's got. Gardner seems to get a little break on him down the straight, then Saron closes up under brakes. Yeah,
Christian is one of the last great breakers. Wherever you brake, Christian will leave it another 10 feet later and brake. He's a demon on braking.
But the power of the Honda evident there, Barry. As he starts to come out, he seems to get the power down quicker out of the corners and just gets that little break on him again.
Yeah, that's because the Honda's handling better now. There's no big speed differential as there was at the end of last season. At the beginning of this, the Honda was definitely quicker. But now, looking at this, the power of the Honda and the Yamaha are very evenly matched.
And look at this as they really come out of this corner very, very fast on lap 7 now. The Australian Gardner hanging on, and Saron really starting to throw everything at him. But Gardner seems to have every move covered up. But look at Saron now under brakes, as you said. He really comes in hard.
Yeah, he doesn't have much of a chance of getting past in this section. It's a tight corkscrew downhill. But then you go round this right-hand, around the left-hander, down another hill, as we see now, and the good chance for Christian to pass would be going, he's not close enough, into this right-hander, but he's just not quite close enough. Well, now this is the difficult section coming up here, whereas the power, where Christian has to be very, very careful, because a big handful around here and it's all over.
Well, the bike looks pretty twitchy, and when we look at it, Saron's had 3 crashes in the last 5 races now. Now, Wayne would be aware of that, so maybe he's sort of towing him along a little too.
Well, I think that Wayne just wants to stay clear of Christian as much as he can. As I say, they get along very well together. But the last thing in the world that Christian would want to do would bring anybody down, let alone Wayne down.
Well, good pictures tonight as the Honda now leading Saron from France. And look at this as they really trail each other around on lap number 8. This is a 30-lap race. Total race distance is 125.4 kilometres in length, so a long way to go yet.
Yeah, the circuit is so hard on tyres that I think you'll find after 15 or so laps are gone that you're going to see the bikes really wriggling around a lot. You see that Gardner and Saron have pulled out 3 seconds on Rainey and McGee, and Mamola's a further 3 seconds behind McGee. So it's stretching out a little.
The manufacturer lineup looks interesting. We've got Honda, Yamaha, and then the Cagiva.
Yeah, the Cagiva people must really be happy because the bike's been getting better all the year. Now this is the section that Chris needs to be a little bit easy on. I would say if Christian's going to have a go, when we get through this fast section here, there's another left-hander. That's it, we're on the straight now. I would say Christian would have a go at the end of this straight because Christian is outstanding on the brakes. He certainly is putting everything into it.
Well, when we have a look at previous results here, Christian Saron Was first in 86 and fifth in 85, so he obviously likes the circuit.
Well, yeah, he likes it, but there again, he did suffer from severe concussion last year after crashing in practice. So let's just hope he uses his head this year.
Wayne Gardner from Australia still out in front in this most important race for him. We've already told you that Eddie Lawson, the American, came down in the final moments of practice. He dislocated a shoulder. Courageously, he's riding tonight with the aid of painkillers. And that's just the break that the Australian needed to try and peg this championship points gap back.
Yeah, as far as we can see, Lawson isn't in the top 10 at the moment, so we're not getting much shots at the back of the field, but we can't see him in the first 10. So I would imagine that if he's not up in the first 10 in another few laps, he looks like he could be planning a retirement.
Well, we mentioned Wayne Gardner's results along with Saron, now in first in 87, again in 86, and of course he was third in 85. So he really has come to grips with this place too. Oh
yeah, well the thing, Wayne has done a lot of testing here this year. When he was having all the trouble with his bikes, they used Rijeka to try some new frames and in actual fact try an old frame from last year. So he would be as familiar as anybody with the place.
Really throwing the Honda around now. Wayne Gardner throwing it over on the side and Saron holding on gamely. And gee, what a dice this is as we go into lap 10. Now we get a look at the back markers, we can say.
Well, not exactly back markers. That's Rainey and McGee there. And it's interesting to see that Mamola has caught up a second and a quarter on that last lap. So I don't know whether they ran into any kind of problems, but Mamola's certainly not out of the hunt.
Well, Wayne Gardner booked this circuit last weekend just for testing, so he was pretty keen to do well here.
Well, yeah, it's a very difficult circuit, as I said, and to set the bike up handling-wise, the most important thing here, you see the back end of McGee's bike starting to slide round there, so maybe the Dunlop isn't performing as well as the Michelin. Rainey and McGee are the only two guys in the race on Dunlops, and you see Mamola's really reeling them in now, and he's on Pirelli tyres, so maybe the Pirellis have finally got their act together and given him some sticky rubber.
Rainey and McGee too, having talked to them in California at Kenny Roberts' ranch, they really are very close friends, and I asked them the question when it came down to racing, what was going to happen, any team orders, and they said no, we're just going to race for each other and the team.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You can be the best of buddies with somebody and you go out on a racetrack, you don't give them a hard time, but you want to beat them as bad as they want to beat you. It looks by the back end of Mamola's bike as if the new Pirelli tyres are working very well. Bike doesn't appear to be shaking at all coming out of corners.
That's the Kajiva in fifth spot.
Got 20 laps left to run. It's nice when you come around and you see one lap to run. In actual fact, they put up a one lap board and it's your last lap there.
Great talent, this fella.
Oh yeah, incredibly talented and very well liked. Randy Mamola at one time used to be, what could you say, the little misery guts. He'd win a race, never smile or anything, and then all of a sudden he broke out of his shell and he's one of the most likeable characters that you could wish to meet now. He's extremely popular in England and indeed throughout Europe. He's a very changed man.
The Kajiva bike, what can you tell us about that?
Apart from the fact that he nearly ran off the circuit then. It's a bike that's made in Italy, totally funded by, it's using all the road, totally funded by the two brothers Castiglioni that own the Kajiva factory. They're just really motorcycle enthusiasts. They like motorbikes, so they thought they'd buy a motorbike factory. And in actual fact, they said to Randy, if he wins a Grand Prix, Claudio Castiglioni is going to buy him a new Testarossa Ferrari.
Not a bad incentive.
Well, not bad at all.
The bright red Kajiva with Randy Mamola on board and doing pretty well too. But it really is sliding about, this bike.
Yeah, it's starting to slide around now. As I say, it's a very difficult circuit on tyres, and you have to look after your tyres in the first half of the race here, because towards the end of the race is when you really need the grip, and of course you don't have it if you screw the tyres at the beginning.
Lap 12, and the Cagiva has never won?
No, never ever won. In actual fact, last weekend was the first time that the Cagiva has ever finished in the first three, and it became something of a national hero overnight in Italy.
Yeah, it must be terribly tough for a rider to be on a one-out bike like this. You've got to sort it out, get it to work, and then get the pits to work in behind you. It must be a big responsibility, and it would take a lot of the edge off his riding, I would think.
Well, it's a difficult thing because you're carrying Italy on your shoulders, and I love the Italians, but you know, you get they're so enthusiastic, and it's a little bit of a heavy load to carry sometimes if things don't go quite right. But I must admit, Mamola's putting everything into it. So you see, coming around that corner there, he had the opposite lock on the bike, and anybody that rides a motorbike knows how tricky that can be. He's making a really good job.
Really throwing it around. It's amazing just how the angles you can get over to people that aren't motorcycle enthusiasts that have been tuning into these Grand Prix and starting to enjoy the sport now to understand it better. I mean, how many people have said to me, how can somebody get so close to the ground that fast and come back so quickly?
Well, they crank the bikes over now to 53 odd degrees, which is when you lay a bike over in the garage to 53 degrees, you'd give up and say it's totally impossible. It's just because the tyre technology is so good these days, and the chassis of the bikes are so brilliant that you can really get away with murder on them now.
And this fellow, of course, 9 GP seasons and 4 times runner-up, so fairly impressive, but been a bridesmaid a number of times.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for him because it's a hard old Grand Prix season. As you say, he's finished second 4 times. It's such a difficult thing to do to win, and it would have been just nice if he could have won just the one time.
Well, I feel like I'm getting attached to Randy Mamola. I'd like to have a look at what's happening up front. That's the pictures we're getting at the moment as we see the Cagiva being hurtled around the track with Randy Mamola on board, chasing Rainey and McGee.
I think you probably find it's an Italian cameraman.
I'm sure about that. And this is a good dice here. Rainey from the USA, Kevin McGee from Australia on the Lucky Strike Yamahas. Put together by Kenny Roberts, 3 times world champion out of America, and he was very excited about getting Kevin McGee. In fact, he said to me in California he thought McGee had the most natural talent of any bike rider he'd seen in 10 years.
Well, that's very true. I mean, Kevin came over last year to Europe and won a Grand Prix for the first time out. I mean, it was quite incredible. And the lap times he was doing on a bike he'd never ridden were just unbelievable. I mean, he's a very, very talented guy, and to expect him to go out and win a Grand Prix after a year is enough, but to win a Grand Prix in the first 2 races that he rode in, I mean, it's outstanding.
Okay, so as the Lucky Strike Yamahas throw themselves round the corner, we'll take a break, be back shortly. On the Honda, Saron on the Yamaha, Rainey on a Yamaha, McGee on a Yamaha, and of course Mamola on the Cagiva, and he is catching that group. So this race really starting to develop, but the big race out in front, and there it is. First and second places for you as we go into lap 16. Wayne Gardner from Australia on the Honda, out in front, being chased since the start by Christian Saron, that man in blue. And there's nothing in this.
No, there sure isn't, and it doesn't look as if Saron's letting up at all. The only saving grace for Wayne is the fact that I think Wayne is physically fitter than Christian, and probably, well, almost certainly a little bit more to get together mentally. I think towards the end of the race, Christian starts to get tired, both physically and mentally, and that's when it all falls to pieces for him, because he always goes good for the first sort of 2/3 of a race, and then it all falls to pieces.
Well, there's only from 1st to 5th, just 10 seconds separating the riders as we're at the half distance mark now. Saron really throwing the bike round, tucks up underneath Gardner, really getting in the slipstream, but sliding the bike around both riders as they're really putting everything into this. It's Honda and Yamaha, 1st and 2nd. And Saron seems to close up on brakes. As Barry said, he really does brake late. And Gardner just gets the power down that little bit earlier as they come out of the corners onto the straight bits and just makes that 10 metres or so that gives him that little edge.
Yeah, the Wayne's bike is handling a hell of a lot better now than it was, because when he changed direction there coming onto the main straight, he pulled out quite a distance on Christian Saron. So it's nice for him to have something that goes where he points it for a change.
Well, Eddie Lawson, we haven't seen through the coverage for some time. We don't think he's in the top 10. That's, of course, helping Wayne Gardner as they come into the back markers now. So this must be a very trying time for both riders.
Yeah, it is, and it's a funny thing with back markers. You get good days and bad days, so we'll just have to see who gets the luck. You see Wayne's held up a little bit there, and Christian's getting a run on him. So this is a bad section coming up now. If Wayne gets stuck behind any one of this mob now, going down through this corkscrew, it can really lose you a hell of a lot of ground.
Well, Wayne Gardner handled the traffic so well in Belgium. He really made the most of it as he came through the pack then.
Yeah, he did. He's the thing is with back markers, you just got to have split-second decision, and whatever your decision is, you just have to hope it's the right one. It's something, you see a gap and you just go for it. But the trouble is, 9 cases out of 10, the back markers don't realise you're coming, and what was a gap can be slammed right in your face. So it's a tricky old situation.
Well, Gardner's lost none of his edge there as they've come through that pack. He really has maybe opened up slightly, but look at Saron under brakes again. He's sensational. Oh,
he's quite incredible. He's got to be one of the top guys on braking. When you're following someone as Christian is Wayne, it's much easier to brake later, because you just gauge when they're braking and leave your braking a fraction later and just hope you haven't left it too late.
Motor racing, such an incredible sport, I guess, and it can change week about now. Wayne Gardner said 2 weeks ago the only way that he could get back into this championship chase, I guess, for the title was for something to happen to Eddie Lawson. He said that won't happen because he doesn't fall off the bike. He has. Now, if he can win this and Lawson finishes out of the top 10, of course, he's so close.
Well, that's it. I mean, now he's 34 points behind. Let's hope that Lawson doesn't finish today and Wayne wins it. Then all of a sudden that 34 points is down to 14. So with the remaining races, we've got Sweden where Wayne's won, we've got Brazil where Wayne's won, we've got Donington Park in the UK where Wayne has raced more times than anybody else that will be riding in the Grand Prix there. So all the circuits that are coming up are real Wayne places. So I don't think things are looking as grim for Wayne as he thought they were.
Well, when you look at it, Eddie Lawson out in front on the points table with 159 points. Now, if Wayne Gardner wins tonight and he doesn't finish in the top 10, that's Lawson, that 20 points that he'll put onto his score will take him to 145, so he's getting close. The world champion, Wayne Gardner from Australia on the Honda, throwing it around and leading the Frenchman, Christian Saron, on the Yamaha.
You can see how much Wayne pulled on Christian Saron then, just because Saron got stuck behind a back marker. And now Wayne's in a good position there, because Saron is going to get stuck behind the slower rider Canabula, and it just makes so much difference. It's so hard. You struggle for 4 or 5 laps to make half a second, then a back marker could lose you a second and a half in no time at all.
Well, he's really picked up on some there on lap 19 now. Of course, points are scored right down to 15th place, so Lawson will be aware of that, and if you've told me before, he's such a competitor, he will finish for anything.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's everybody knows, you know, like Wayne, for example, if he had any, I remember in Hockenheim a couple of years ago, he had trouble with his bike and they only gave points down to 10th place then. He soldiered on and limped on, and he came home and he got 1 point for 10th place, but that 1 point can make all the difference at the end of the year.
Okay, well, this is a really testing circuit. I mean, when you look at the riders here, they're sort of up and then they're down again, and then they've got a flip-flop again, so they're up and down again. It's very demanding. Yeah,
Mamola is making really big inroads into the lead that McGee and Rainey have got on him. He's what, not even half a second behind McGee now. I think he's probably got a bit of help from the back markers, but quite an exceptional performance from Mamola and the Cagiva.
Throwing it through there, Mamola on the red Cagiva. Really making some inroads now on the 2 Lucky Strike Yamahas. There he is.
Thinking of his Testarossa.
And why wouldn't he?
Not all.
And here it is. What a battle this is now. We're looking for 3rd place, 3rd, 4th and 5th. That's what you're looking at now. It's Rainey, McGee, Mamola. with Mamola really throwing out the challenge on bike number 2, the red Kajiva.
Lap 20, we've got 10 to go, so things will really start hotting up now. When I say things, I mean the tyres will really start hotting up, so you expect to start seeing people slide around a lot. And I can't believe how much of the road Mamola's using.
I was going to ask you, that last 10 laps, I mean, what does the bike start to do? Do you expect it to do those things?
Yeah, you do. You're ready for it. You're ready for the tyres to start sliding around. The suspension gets hot. The damping doesn't work as well, and it just generally handles like an airport trolley towards the end of the race, but you're used to it. You're expecting it. See, Mamola got stuck behind a back marker, then it cost him a lot of time, and he's just, yes, good move, got through.
Randy Mamola's record for 88 looks interesting. 4 times didn't finish, 3 times he didn't start. He's had a 7th place, a 3rd place in the last round.
Well, that's it, and the Italians have been working flat out on this thing to make it go, and it looks like they haven't been wasting their time. It's nice to see a European factory competing against the Japanese. I mean, we've seen nothing else but Japanese bikes winning races for the past donkey's years, and I think it's good for a European factory.
Well, he is starting to close up. There it is, 3rd, 4th and 5th for you. Wayne Rainey, Kevin McGee from Australia on bike 16, and that's Randy Mamola doing the big chase. He's the big improver at the moment. Gardner still in front. Saron is second. So this is quite a race. And 10 laps to go.
Yeah, the way Kevin McGee's riding, obviously that prang he had in practice last week in Belgium hasn't affected him at all. It's one thing just falling down, but another thing when you knock yourself out, because you have a big struggle remembering what you did wrong, if indeed you did anything wrong. So psychologically when you come back, it's bit of a struggle, but it's not affecting him at all.
McGee now making a charge a little on the Rainey as he closes up. They come out a little straight bit. They get a chance to sort of set up again, and down they go again and through the S's. Wayne Rainey, Kevin McGee and Randy Mamola really putting on the power now. The big flick of the wrist as he closes the gap up. This is for 3rd, 4th and 5th. The Australian, Kevin McGee in 4th. Wayne Rainey in 3rd. Randy Mamola really using up all of the road.
Yeah, quite. He's got an incredible style, Mamola. He round a right-hander, he doesn't even have his left foot on the footrest. While we're thinking about Rainey, you've got to give him points because he's the only one of the top sort of 10 runners that hasn't pitched it up the road, hasn't crashed this year. Virtually everybody else has fallen down. So it's a pretty difficult thing to do, to stay upright and practice, race and everything. So he's doing a really good job.
Well, he was very excited about having been given the chance to come to Europe by Kenny Roberts, and he said, I've stayed in America, I've won everything I can, the Superbike Series, there's nothing for me to win here now. All I want to do is go to Europe and chase a world crown.
Yeah, he came over in 84 and rode a 250cc. And everybody was talking about Rainey before he arrived, and it was all a bit of a damp squib. We didn't see anything good from him. So when Kenny said this year that he was going to have Rainey to ride, I thought, oh, well, it's Kevin McGee, you know, he's head and shoulders better. But when you see the two of them together, they're very, very evenly matched, and you can only compliment Kenny on his choice.
Well, let's have a look at Wayne Rainey's 88 performances so far. He's had 2 seconds, he's had 2 thirds, a 4th, a 5th, 2 6th, 1 7th, so it's been a mixed bag for him.
Yeah, it sure has. In the background there, I see that Mamola's sitting up and dropping back a little. I don't know whether he's got some kind of problem, unless he was stuck behind somebody, but he seemed to lose a lot of ground in that last lap.
And Kevin McGee has lost some ground there too through that slower ride, and now he makes the clean move, and Wayne Rainey's opened up a fairly healthy gap when you consider how close they've been right throughout this race.
Yeah, it's this is the trouble with the back marker situation. You see now that back marker's dumped right in the front of Kevin, so it doesn't look as if it's slowing him up too much, but it really is. You're trying to get the power on, and you just have to ease it back a bit, and it slows you down probably 3 or 4 kilometres. Yeah, I got an idea there's something wrong with Mamola's bike, because he seems to be sitting up a lot earlier than he was, and he certainly isn't charging the way he was.
Lap 23. We'll take a quick break, be back shortly. Mamola McGee, but we've just had a passing move just a second ago. Here it is, Randy Mamola taking Kevin McGee The Australian on the Yamaha just slipping back. He fought back into the corner but couldn't get the line. He was on the outside line the long way round, and Randy Mamola's worn him down.
Yeah, it was a really good passing move by Mamola. He must have got held up in traffic because see the old battle still going on. Christian hasn't given up the ghost yet.
6 laps to go. Australia's Wayne Gardner hanging on now. Christian Saron has been there behind him the entire race. Gardner getting a little edge now, making a break. And you predicted that, Barry. We'll see what happens under brakes because Saron's been closing up each lap.
Well, if I was Christian, I was talking to Chris both in Holland and in Belgium, and I said, Chris, why don't you use your head towards the end of the race? It's better to finish second. You know, it's rather than be a hero and go out and go blow and knock a hole in the fence, you know. So hopefully Christian is going to settle down and say, look, I'm going to finish a really good second place, and better still, I'm not going to run for the band-aid at the end of the race.
Well, at the moment, from Wayne Gardner back to McGee, there's a break there, and from there's 20 seconds from first back to 5th place. So the Australians number 1 and back to 5th place at the moment.
We'll see at the end of this lap if we stay with Gardner and Saron, whether Christian has settled. Being as there's only 5 laps to run now, I would say that judging on his past performance, I would say that Christian would settle down and just settle for a good second place now. Let's just hope that he does.
Well, there's half a second now back from first to second, and that's probably been the biggest gap we've seen for the last 10 or 15 laps or so. Here's Gardner, Saron, there's the times up for you. It's almost now a second. So Gardner really putting the power down on the home stretch. And boy, oh boy, what a win. If he can hold on 3 in a trot and take our mind back 4 or 5 weeks ago, it would have been an impossible dream.
Well, if you'd have told Wayne 4 or 5 weeks ago how things were going to run in these 3 Grand Prix of the last 3 weeks, then I'm sure he'd have thought you were dreaming. It's Kevin McGee hasn't given up the ghost. He's still hassling Mamola. So let's just hope that Mamola gets a little bit stuck behind the traffic, and it'll give Kevin a good chance to nip by.
Randy Mamola, quite a race for him tonight on the Cajiva. He really has poured on the power, but look at McGee coming back, the Australian starting to trail him. Now we're coming up to some other riders. Let's see if Kevin McGee can have an ounce of luck here. He's on the outside line. He's trying to set up to maybe have a dive inside, but still too wide. Now he tucks back inside. Oh, and Mamola really throwing the bike around and getting half a wobble up as McGee powers it on. Another rider they've got to overtake. A little signal there for Mamola to slip back inside. McGee comes the other side of him. Hairy stuff.
Yeah, you see down the straight, there's nothing to choose between the Yamaha and the Cajiva, and Mamola is extremely difficult to get past because he's very, very... Oh, nice little slide there. He's extremely difficult to get past because he's very, very fast into corners, and then not slow around corners, but he doesn't go... It doesn't tally the speed that he goes in. You'd think he'd go... Oh, McGee passed.
McGee's got him.
Same place as Mamola got McGee.
Well, he's not only got him, he's just gone past like a rocket and just opened up that slight gap. They've gone back and shown us there were 4 laps to go, and McGee's just shot through.
I think maybe there's a back marker there. Maybe the back marker, all you have to do, you see, Randy could have hesitated a fraction, and that's all it needs. And Kevin saw the opening and took it.
When you say there's been a little wobble like that, when we saw Randy Mamola, I mean, you say it so, well, it's almost a matter of fact. But, I mean, at that speed, a wobble like that must be an unbelievable experience.
Well, it's not too bad. You can get the thing sideways at 160-odd mile an hour. It's as long as it goes sideways and comes back again, that's the main thing. It's something that you expect during a race. You see Mamola opposite locking it there. It's just something you get used to. You don't even feel it, really. It's just something that Mamola's the hot shot on the brakes. So got a good run on McGee there.
McGee looking to have the line. Look at this side by side, and McGee just slips back inside. This is great stuff coming out of the Yugoslav 500cc Grand Prix on Nines by Autosport. You're seeing all the action here tonight. McGee and Mamola are at it. Well, of course, Mamola had the ride that McGee's got. Well, he had it last year, so there'd be a little bit in that too.
Well, that's it. Everybody said that Mamola was mad to give up the Yamaha ride. And some people said, oh, McGee wouldn't go as good as Mamola. But so I would imagine there'd be some kind of little bit of needle going on to see what this back market has to say in the issue. Oh, Kevin got by nicely there. Right, that's done Kevin a lot of good because it's going to slow Mamola up now. See, Mamola has to take the long way around, and the guy wasn't exactly giving Mamola much of an easy time there.
Well, he didn't really, because he let McGee through quite well, and I suppose got committed and said, well, if you're going to get round these, Randy, you've got to find your own way round. I'm a bit committed here at the moment. But McGee has now opened up a little bit of a gap, and that'll make the Australian pretty happy. But Randy Mamola, not one to give up. Let's see if he can fight back. They're running out of laps. The Australian Wayne Gardner is in front. Christian Saron on the Yamaha from France is second. Wayne Rainey is third. Kevin McGee is fourth. And Randy Mamola is fifth. So fourth and fifth battle you're looking at now. And McGee really opening up now. Yeah, Mamola comes back on brakes.
Yeah, he's incredibly quick into corners, Mamola. But as I say, he gets in really quick, but he doesn't get out quite as quick as Kevin McGee does. So Kajiva is extremely fast. It's got to be the biggest surprise of the year.
Here we are, Wayne Gardner out in front of bike number one, the Honda, finally working the way that he hoped it would. The gap now really opening out, so Gardner is pretty relaxed. Looks like win number 3 coming up, 4.5 seconds the gap. Remember, it was only half a second, then it got to a second and a half. Now it's out to 4.5.
Well, it's nice that Christian has used his head and said, okay, right, look, I'm not gonna go and throw it up the road again. I'll settle for second place, and that is good. You know, he's a good rider, and we have to bear in mind that the last European to win a 500cc Grand Prix was indeed Christian Saron. So he's not done too bad in his career.
Well, this fella hasn't done too badly either. The world champion last year, and he was down and out. The Honda were getting such bad publicity all around the world, particularly in Australia, because of Wayne Gardner holding the crown. They've got the bike right. They've worked hard. He's worked hard. He's fit again. And look at this. This is vintage Wayne Gardner back in front. This is the last lap of 30, so he's only got to hang on now.
It's where the old heart rate goes up on the last lap. So imagine you hear things rattling and something's going wrong, and you come up against back markers and think, oh, shall I say, no, I won't bother, yes I will, and you don't want to lose time. It seems to last forever, the last lap.
Well, Wayne Gardner now heading for a hat-trick of wins, and Saron's best finish in 88, a second, so it's been quite a race. But Wayne Gardner now will really close on Eddie Lawson for this championship. I guess it all depends on now if Lawson can recover quick enough to fight back in the remaining races.
Well, that's it. Indeed, we don't even know exactly where Lawson is at this stage of the game, but if he's not in the first 10, you don't get an awful lot of points. And as you so rightly say, next weekend is Paul Ricard's circuit. That's pretty hard circuit physically, so things look as if they're starting to go Wayne's way.
One of the great things about Wayne Gardner this year, though, when he was having a lot of trouble, it took him a long time before he came out and openly criticised the Honda company. He battled on with the bike till finally he said, look, we've got to fix this damn thing.
Well, that's the thing, you see. I've been in the same situation with Japanese factories, and instead of them listening to start with, you have to start bad rapping them in the press, and then they don't like that, and then they do something about it.
You could see him mono-wheeling there. The front will really come off, and there's the checkered flag. So Wayne Gardner makes it 3 in a row and has really closed up and made this 500cc World Championship something now.
And Mamola's back in front. Oh, look at this. Wow, that was close. Mamola's back in front of McGee. I don't think you could have got any closer if you'd have tried. You wouldn't have got a feeler gauge in between those two.
Well, what a battle it had. I mean, Wayne Rainey made that little bit of a difference to come in third, but McGee and Mamola, they've been at it for the last 20 laps.
Yeah, that's an outstanding performance by Mamola, without any shadow of a doubt. He's certainly got his whole act together now, and I can only feel pleased for Kajiva, who've pumped so much money into the sport.
Well, I guess Australia really rejoicing tonight. Their champion, Wayne Gardner, has come in and made it 3 in a row, winning this race, and that'll close the championship up, and it really makes it interesting now in a fight on it. Eddie Lawson, of course, has got to recover. There he is, our boy Wayne Gardner. The hand up, he would be absolutely ecstatic. So it finished Gardner, Saron, Rainey, Mamola, McGee. They were the top 5. Durata was in 6th place.
There's a shot of Lawson now. If we can see who's behind him, we might have a rough idea of... No, I'm sorry, we just can't tell you where Lawson is at this moment.
So Eddie Lawson finishing out of the major points, and that's something that nobody would have predicted just a couple of weeks ago. And Saron with a great fighting second, but the man who has taken it out, Wayne Gardner from Australia, the Wollongong Wiz, has done it again, 3 in a row. And what a fantastic second half of the season he's having, acknowledging the crowd now. And this is a great moment for Gardner. He really was so depressed 4 or 5 weeks ago. He was carrying an injury, his bike wasn't working. He's now pulled 3 out of the bag, riding as well as we've ever seen him ride, and the bike, Barry, now seems to be right.
Well, that's it, and his confidence is right back up again. He's obviously very, very easy Mamola doodling along on the back wheel. Yeah, his confidence is right back. The bike's going good, and it's a funny thing. It's a roll-on effect. You get the bike to start going good, you get a good result, your confidence comes up, and the whole lot seems so much easier.
Well, let's have a look, not knowing where Lawson has finished, and we'll find that out as soon as we can, but he has a total of 159, perhaps 1 or 2 points out of that, because we're not sure. Wayne Gardner on 145, Rainey on 132, and McGee on 100, but that could change. Their provisional results. It depends on where Eddie Lawson has finished, and we'll get that to you as soon as we can. Shot to the big crowd here. Of course, that's the Mamola stand, and there's plenty of them there.
Yeah, as I say, it must be an Italian cameraman, I think, because we've had a lot of shots of Mamola this time round.
You're not wrong. I feel like he's one of the family. Gardner going in now, and what a great moment for him. Well, there we go.
Well, we don't see... So
nothing on Eddie Lawson in the top 8.
They did have a 9th place down, but they whipped that away, so maybe... Well, the highest is going to be his 9th, so that's a good day for Wayne. Okay,
well, so we'll head up the scores for you. We'll find out about Eddie Lawson, and we'll be back straight after the break. Don't leave us. Back. Nice to have your company with us, and what a great night again for Australia. Wayne Gardner has